All right, let's give this take two. So this was the PowerPoint I posted last week, but I want to add my audio explanations to it. Okay. So kind of overview of Christianity itself. Okay. There are many sect, not sects, sect, sects. So what I mean by that is divisions or branches, as you can see this tree here. So obviously Christianity starts with the big man himself, Jesus, right? And then the Roman Empire is in charge, right? And they tried him and crucified him and all that stuff. And that goes on for, over 1,000 years. One of the emperors, Constantine, moves the head of the church from Rome to Constantinople, okay, named after him. In 1054, there's a split, right? And so the church rebases itself, the Western church rebases itself in Rome and becomes the Catholic Church, right? So that's the first organized, so to speak, branch of Christianity's Catholic Church. On the Eastern side, you have basically this Eastern Orthodox, which turns into Russian Orthodox and Greek Orthodox, okay? So that stays constant in the eastern part of Europe. Meanwhile, in the western part, you've got the Roman Catholic Church. They're the main church of Christianity up until Martin Luther and Henry VIII. Martin Luther basically protests some of the teachings or the doctrines of the church, primarily things we don't need to go into right now. You can take world history and learn more about that. But when he posts his 95 Thesis, and when Henry VIII asks for a divorce, that becomes this protest movement, and you have this split. And so Henry VIII starts the Anglican Church, and then you see all these different branches. And these aren't even all of them, right? So we're missing Southern Baptists. We're missing Episcopalian. We're missing Mormons. We're missing, let's see, more will come to me. Okay, Lutheran. Okay, the Lutherans over here. They all share similarities in the Roman Catholic Church, but they picked and choose different aspects of the teachings to focus on or aspects not to focus on, right? So here in the West and in America, we have a lot of this. We have a few of these, but not as many. And then in Eastern Europe, this runs predominant, right? Okay, so if you click this link, it should take you to a video that can explain it later or in more in-depth, right? It is the second largest Christian church in the world. I already mentioned this. This is key right here, this guy. Number 3 bullet. Adopted many local customs in Eastern Europe. This is what makes Eastern Europe so much different. Whoa, come back. Than, say, the Roman Catholic Church in traditional Europe. Okay, because we're talking the Middle Ages here. Right, so peasants, they're the lowest class, and life sucks for them because it's the Dark Ages. And the other term for Middle Ages is Dark Ages. You got the plague going on, right? You got a lot of poverty. You have to basically give work for your lord or your king. And so if you're a peasant, which most people were, life stunk. So the one thing that helped was this sense of hope. And that hope was taught in the church, whether it's the Catholic Church or whether it was the Eastern Orthodox. In the Catholic Church, the priests all spoke Latin, and none of the peasants spoke Latin. So they had to look at the stained glass windows for interpretation. Where in the Eastern Orthodox, they used the local languages and customs. So they got it. They got it right out of the bat. And so they had a much better sense of hope and heaven in the East than they did in the West. Okay. The other thing the Eastern Orthodox did, it broke from the Roman calendar or the Julian calendar. We here in America basically use the Julian calendar, July, Julius, right? And so our Christmas is December 25th. Eastern Orthodox, they're skewed a little bit longer, a little bit different. Their Christmas is in January, okay? And their holy days are slightly different. So that's a break, okay? Icons, this is supposed to be bolded. This is a vocab word you need to know for the test. These are painted images representing Christ or the apostles or holy people, and they exist in both East and Western Christianity. But I'll show you some examples of how they differ. Okay. And then Russian Orthodox is the largest branch of the Eastern Orthodox, but we're not going to worry about that so much. Okay. The churches. So if we're looking architecturally, like the plans of the building, and you're looking down on top of the building, this is Western Europe and oftentimes a lot of American Christian churches. It looks something similar to this. It's a basic cross, okay, is what it is. And you've got these aisles and a nave and then an altar and an apse. So the priest is here. Everybody else is here in all these rows. Up until 1969, a lot of the women were separated from the men. And so it's very big, it's very daunting, and you're very far away from the priest. Eastern Europe, look at how quaint this is. It's a nice little circle. You sit in the round, so to speak, right? And the priest is right here. Okay, so it's much more intimate. In the Middle Ages, the priest over here, he's speaking in Latin. Nobody here or here understands Latin. The priest here is speaking the local language. Everybody gets what's going on. Okay, so that's an advantage that Eastern has. As you watch this again, you may want to jot down some of those as notes because obviously this is a really good compare and contrast. Here's a front view of a typical Gothic style church in Europe. Looks like we're in England here, so this would be the Anglican church. You've got all these sculptures, oftentimes from the Old and the New Testament. We talked about that earlier. We have this rose window. You can see how tall this is, right? This person right here. So when you're inside, the ceiling is way, 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 way up there. The stained glass window lets in light, but it also has all the pictures to help interpret. Because remember, the priest here is speaking in Latin. None of the peasants understand Latin. Okay. Eastern Europe, look at how colorful this is. Okay, it's smaller. Okay, it's quaint. Inside here would be, you'd sit in the round. You do have these cool architectural features of domes. Okay, but it's so colorful, right? The cross itself. This is your typical Western or Roman cross, right? You've got the vertical piece and the intersect. Sometimes you have this circle or halo, universal symbol for eternity. There are some variations with the Celtic cross, would have some different weaves and designs in it, but the cross itself is basically this, two pieces. In the East, you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You have the footboard, and then you have where the sign INRI was placed. Okay, so Eastern Europeans have added a couple of cross members. Paintings, we've looked at this before, right? Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, painting God. God is pretty buff, right? He's hit the iron. He looks really studly. Just creates Adam. So right out of the get-go, Adam is already buff. Look at the size of those biceps and shoulders, right? Pretty lifelike, but idealized, right? Here in the East, less lifelike, okay? Kind of flattish looking. There's some subtle indications of roundness, but it's still kind of flat. The nose is too long. The proportions are not right here, especially in the face. But the one thing Eastern Orthodox always has is this halo, okay? Sometimes it's filled in gold. Sometimes you've got the cross, but there's always a halo around the icons in the East, as opposed to no halos here. Okay, moving into some other forms of art. Like we looked at European music, classical, right? Beethoven, Mozart. Here, our main dude is Tchaikovsky. He's Russian. His famous pieces, Swan Lake, 1812 Overture, and obviously the holiday favorite that's coming up right now, the Nutcracker. much like classical, I talked about how the music would build up and then there'd be this huge crescendo. Okay, that's similar to Tchaikovsky. But as you can hear right off the bat, you got these trumpets. Maybe. Come on. Play. This is not the time for the internet to go down. Doggone it. Okay, good. You start hearing it build up. Sorry, my dog locked himself in the kennel. But now you can hear the music building and building and building, right? But it sounds really different than the orchestra of Beethoven and Mozart. Okay, much more horns, much louder crescendo, and now it starts to come back down with your typical strings. Okay, if I fast forward this is just the last part of the whole orchestra. The main piece is an hour long. If you've ever watched the movie The Bad News Bears, this was their theme song. You can hear church bells. So he's added church bells to the orchestration. And in a minute here, you'll hear cannon fire. Right about coming. Right about now. Boom. There it is again, cannon fire. Okay. So church bells, massive church bells, tolling in sync with the orchestra. Cannon fires outside of the orchestra hall, firing in sync. Okay. So it's a much different type of classical music than from Western Europe. Okay. I'll let you listen to that at your leisure. But we'll continue with Tchaikovsky. Okay, the other thing he did was, hey, what's going on? There we go. Russia is famous for their ballets and their ballerinas, right? Swan Lake and the Nutcracker ballets. So some years ago, Portman here played in the Hollywood smash hit Black Swan, which kind of looked at the modern day ballerina. And I'm going to let you click this at your leisure to watch the preview. But the discussion begs itself. Are ballerinas athletes or are they artists? And this video or this movie really kind of explores the dedication and the sacrifices ballerinas have to make on their bodies as well as in their lives to become the best of their trade. And one could easily argue that ballerinas are definitely athletes. Literature, War and Peace is the big one by Tolstoy. It's a huge one. And again, Russian history is filled with lots of war. So similar to Tchaikovsky's music, this is the literature version of that, so to speak. And we're not going to worry about this part. So that is going to bring us to an end of, Russian. There we go. Time to end. Click. Looking at Eastern Orthodox religion as well as art compared to the West.